What you are about to see is a startling biblical revelation. Is it mere coincidence, or is it the fingerprint of God upon His Word? As a matter of fact, the statistical chances of what you are about to see actually occurring as they do, those numbers have been run by statisticians, and the chances of the following revelations being a coincidence are 1 in several trillion. In other words, what you are about to witness is impossible to be a mere coincidence. We begin with a quick understanding of the Hebrew calendar. The ancient calendar of Israel before the Exodus event was arranged as follows: the month of Tishri being the first and the month of Nisan being the seventh. But after the Exodus event, God told Moses that Nisan was to be the first month of the calendar from then on, to mark and to commemorate the importance of His deliverance of the Israelites from Egypt. In Exodus 12, we are introduced to some other commands. The Passover lamb was to be selected on the 10th day of the month of Nisan. It was to be a perfect male lamb without blemish, and it would be slaughtered on the 14th day of the month of Nisan, or the first month. And everyone who was under the blood of that sacrificial lamb would be saved or passed over when God's judgment came upon Egypt. Now, go up 1,500 years in history from the Passover event. Jesus rides into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday. That was Nisan the 10th. The people chose Him as their lamb, crying, "Hosanna to God in the highest." They shouted, "Blessed is He who comes in the name of the Lord." So on Nisan the 10th, the people actually chose their lamb. By the 14th of Nisan, that same crowd was crying, "Crucify Him." They slaughtered their lamb on the 14th of Nisan, delivering Him to Calvary's cross, acting out an eternal and spiritual play, fulfilling prophecy totally unawares. But the date I want to focus on now is what happened 3 days later. Jesus rose from the grave. 3 days later, on Nisan the 17th, by His resurrection, Jesus declared that our salvation was now secure in Him. But here is what else happened on Nisan the 17th as declared in the Bible. Genesis 8:4 declares that Noah's ark came to rest on the mountaintop on the 17th day of the 7th month. But remember, this would have been the month of Nisan on the calendar before Exodus 12. Noah was certainly before Exodus, of course. Noah's ark rested on the mountain on the exact day that Jesus would rise from the grave. And just as Noah was assured of his salvation and God keeping His covenant with Noah that day, we are assured of our salvation and assured that God kept His promise to us by raising Jesus from the dead on that very same day. But from Numbers chapter 33 verses 1 through 8, we find that on this day the Israelites also passed through the Red Sea, 3 days after leaving Egypt, thus being delivered from certain destruction. On Nisan the 17th, the Israelites passed through the Red Sea and were saved. 1,500 years into the future, Jesus would pass through death and the grave, showing us that we can be saved in Jesus alone. In Joshua chapter 5, verses 5 through 10, we discover that on this very day, Nisan the 17th, Joshua comes face to face with the pre-incarnate Christ. He identifies himself as the commander of the army of the Lord of hosts, who tells Joshua, in the words of God, "Joshua, take off your sandals, you are standing on holy ground." By the way, Joshua, whose name in Hebrew is Yeshua, is told by the pre-incarnate Yeshua that the people of God would be victorious. This was told to Joshua on Nisan the 17th. And in 2 Chronicles chapter 29, we are also told that it was on this day, Nisan the 17th, that the temple of God, which had been neglected and desecrated by wicked priests and kings, was rededicated and cleansed and restored by King Hezekiah, thus assuring that God's presence was now restored to His people on Nisan the 17th. And then finally, we are told in the book of Esther, chapters 3 through 5, that it was on this very day, Nisan the 17th, when the plot to kill the Jews in Persia was turned on Haman. The people of God were delivered, and Haman, their accuser, was destroyed. Does that story sound familiar? It was at the empty tomb that the people of God were delivered and became victorious, while our accuser, Satan, lost the battle of the ages. He was hung on his own gallows, so to speak, just like Haman. Nisan the 17th, the ark rests on the mountaintop. The children of Israel passed through the Red Sea. Joshua meets the commander of the Lord of hosts. The temple is restored, and God's holiness enters therein. The people of God are delivered from their wicked accuser in Persia. And Jesus rises from the grave, assuring us of our salvation, our deliverance, and our victory over the accuser. Is all of this just mere coincidence or the fingerprint of God? Does any other religious book in the world have anything like this as the mark of God upon it? The answer is no. There is no other book with anything like this in it. Get your copy of my new book, The Magic Man in the Sky, Effectively Defending the Christian Faith. Considering the days in which we now live, you need this book. Available at Amazon.com and WND Superstore. Get your copy today.